Well, welcome, friends, to Gems of the Wisdom Tradition, where we meet on a weekly basis to explore ideas and topics from a variety of standpoints and traditions. Today, we have the honor of having our beloved director at Still and Moving Center giving the presentation today, Renée Tillotson, founder and director of the Still and Moving Center, who has brought to life vibrant community devoted to mindful movement, lifelong learning, and whole person wellness. A former gymnast and team captain in both high school and college, Renée's own journey eventually led her back to movement through NIA, where she discovered a deep calling to dance, self-awareness, and joyful embodiment. Since then, she's devoted herself to exploring the connection between movement, inner growth, and spiritual inquiry, while drawing inspiration from world traditions, philosophy, and contemplative practice. Guided by a global-minded, loving love of wisdom and diversity, Renée created Still and Moving as a welcoming home where people can gather to move, reflect, and grow together in a meaningful community. Renée, I understand you're going to speak to us today about awakening the mind, physical and mental wrestling through the lens of ancient Greek tradition of Plato, including the way Socrates and Plato understood the gymnasium not simply as a place for physical training, but as a ground for shaping character, soul, and wisdom. Do I have that right?
You have it perfectly.
Okay, great. Then I'm going to turn it right over to you. Welcome, Renée.
Thank you ever so much. Let's read the back of our Still and Moving Center Almanac cover, and that will give us a keynote for this year of evolving with the cosmos.
Has someone already volunteered to do that reading?
Carolyn Dorrance has.
Oh, beautiful. Carolyn?
Okay. Evolving with the cosmos. The cosmos is full beyond measure of elegant truths, of exquisite interrelationships, of the awesome machinery of nature. The surface of the earth is the shore of the cosmic ocean. On this shore, we've learned most of what we know. Recently, we've waded a little way out, maybe ankle deep, and the water seems inviting. Some part of our being knows this is where we came from. We long to return. And we can, because the cosmos is also within us. We're made of star stuff. We are a way for the cosmos to know itself. Carl Sagan.
Thank you ever so much, Carolyn. And David, really, thank you so much for that very beautiful, really exquisite introduction. I just really feel very honored to have received that.
I had a lot to work with.
Oh, look how good he is. I've also founded something called the Academy of Mindful Movement. And this word academy comes from the ancient Greece, use of the term academy. And we're right now in a gems from the movement traditions. So recently we've kind of alternated back and forth from gems from the wisdom traditions to gems from the movement traditions. And this one we just decided to call from the movement traditions. Since in some ways, I mean, it's almost really paradoxical that we're going to take up thoughts of philosophers and we're calling it from the movement traditions. But I just feel as if it's so remarkable that within the Western world, there are philosophers who've seen the importance of movement disciplines to the awakening of the mind, which is our topic for today, the awakening of the mind. And in the course of my my studies along this, I just came upon beautiful, actually, story from someone named Mahesh Aravind Raj. And it's called The Gymnasium of Wisdom, a story of how Greek philosophers trained their bodies and minds. And I'll read you some portions of the story. He's going to talk about three philosophers. One is Socrates, who was trained as Hippolyte. I believe that might be how it's said, or maybe Hippolyte, an infantry soldier. He did fight in different wars. The second will be his student, Plato, who wrote a book called The Republic, in which he talks about how those who will serve in the Republic as the leaders will be trained both in the gymnasium and in the art of philosophical inquiry, the dialectic, as it were. And then the third part that I will read is another one of quite a few philosophers that his story included, and it's Pythagoras, who comes before actually both Socrates and Plato, and whose traditions Socrates and Plato are very much in alignment with. So here's our story. The sun was rising over Athens, spilling gold across the marble columns of the Lyceum. The cool morning air, the gymnasium was already alive. The thud of feet on packed earth, the scrape of sand beneath sandals, the laughter of young athletes warming their muscles. But among them moved a different kind of figure, not warriors, yet Olympians. Oh, not warriors, not Olympians, but the philosophers who believed that strength of body fed the strength of the mind. This is their story. Socrates, the old soldier who walked with the dawn. Before the sun had fully risen, a familiar shape appeared on the dusty road, a broad-shouldered, barefoot man walking with the steady rhythm of a man who had walked thousands of miles. It was Socrates, gray-bearded, eyes sharp, moving with the endurance of a soldier long past his prime. He walked everywhere, to conversations, to debates, to the fields where he stood thinking for hours. Men half his age complained of fatigue, yet Socrates strode past them without haste, without pride, simply practicing what he believed. A person must train the body so the mind has a worthy home. On campaign, he marched longer than the younger soldiers. In winter, he went barefoot to show them that hardship reveals what a person truly is. And here in the gymnasium, he watched the youths wrestle and asked them questions between rounds, making their minds sweat as much as their bodies. Plato, the athlete with a philosopher's heart. In the sanded ring nearby, a young man with broad shoulders tightened the leather straps around his wrists. He stepped forward to wrestle, and the crowd murmured his name, Plato. Before he wrote the Republic, before he founded his academy, Plato had been a wrestler, a strong one. They say he had once competed at the Isthmian Games. Each morning he wrestled with the discipline he would one day describe in his writings, strength and spirit in harmony. His movements were controlled, elegant, and powerful. He tackled not only his opponent, but his own impulses, the excess, the pride, the anger, believing that the wrestler must conquer himself first. When he rested, wiping sweat from his brow, he often gazed across the yard at Socrates and wondered how physical strength and philosophical clarity might live together in one soul. Several other philosophers are mentioned. Then we get to Pythagoras. Pythagoras' harmony of breath and motion. Near the edge of the gymnasium, in the quieter hours of late afternoon, followers of Pythagoras practiced their own exercises, rhythmic stretches, controlled breathing, light gymnastics. To them, the body was an instrument that needed tuning like the lyre. They timed their breathing to numbers. Inhale 4, exhale 2. They moved in flowing patterns, believing that harmony in the body encouraged harmony in the soul. Their exercises were soft compared to Plato's wrestling or the Stoics' hardships, but they were precise, deliberate, almost musical, a physical reflection of mathematical order. Gymnasium as a school of life. By evening, the shadows lengthened, the marble cooled, the gymnasium emptied. But the echoes of the day remained, not only the sounds of bodies training, but the quiet undercurrent of a deeper purpose. To the Greeks, exercising the body was a path to virtue. Strength built courage, endurance built self-control, balance built harmony, walking built clarity, hardship built resilience. For these philosophers, physical training was not separate from their ideas. It was their philosophy made flesh. They believed that a human being must train the whole self so that the wisdom and strength grew together like two sides of the same soul. Once again, that's written by Mahesh Aravind Raj. We're being given a very integrated vision of education, so that Plato is holding his academy, which sounds as if was perhaps under the shade of trees, right next to the public gymnasium. And there was a certain virtue that was to be gained through fitness. It was a physical fitness, it was a mental fitness, and it was a moral fitness. And it was called arete, A-R-E-T-E, arete. And so these athletics of these different kinds were seen as a method to develop character, temperance, endurance. And these were said in Plato's Republic, which was a treatise in which he laid out an ideal society with its ideal guardians. And so this kind of education was meant to perfect these future guardians for the Republic. It encouraged balance over extremes. Plato himself criticized extreme athletics and advocating for a simple and flexible approach, keeping the body fit without exhausting the mind. And this is very much akin to what is recommended, by the way, in Pythagoras's golden verses, that we exercise to the extent that it does not incommode or inconvenience us in terms of the deeper parts of life. He believed in the training the mind's gymnasium as well, that like muscles, the mind needs to be trained through rigorous dialogue and philosophical inquiry. So you'll find that this Socratic approach to learning does involve a certain sort of wrestling with ideas. And Socrates, when he would speak to people, was very much what he considered to be a gadfly. And a gadfly evidently stings you, wakes you up. And he was always giving these stinging questions to awaken people's minds, their consciences, to really get people to think. He considered the unexamined life to not be even worth living. So if we're going to be alive in this body, let's make it worthwhile. And we've really got to use this mind of ours. So he would continually probe deep questions into these young minds, with the idea that he wasn't meant to pour all this knowledge, all this wisdom into them. No. Educare, if I am pronouncing that correctly, which is the root word of our word education, or to educate, has to do with drawing forth. So the philosophical inquiry is you get hit with these questions, and that is meant to bring out your own inner knowing. And there's a wrestling that one has to do. It's often not something that's right there on the surface, easily accessible. He keeps asking more and more probing questions to kind of pull it out, really, really pull it out. And so it really does take anyone who has attempted to read Plato's dialogues, which have Socrates as the main character, as the teacher and inquirer, knows that it's not easy to make one's way through these dialogues. It does take a certain amount of mental rigor to even read about what he was doing. So he's really grappling with ideas and teaching those who are conversing with him to grapple mentally and especially morally, and to just look at deeper questions in life. There's a interesting word that the Greeks use called soma, and it's the Greek word for body. And there may be people here who can help with the word more than I can. What I'm reading it to mean is like the visible manifestation of a living soul is the soma. So it was the empirically evident side of what it is to be human. And yet it's only part of what could be considered the vast estates accessible to the mind. Soma is. So when we talk about a somatic movement practice, we're talking about a movement practice that is very much finding the intelligence of the human body, of the human being within the movement of a human body. The soma was the tangible end of a span of being that reached from the physical world to the domain of the invisible spirit. And because of that connection between the human body and the invisible spirit, Socrates, as opposed to us maybe thinking of philosophers who completely scorn the human body, and he did at one point refer to the human body as the prison of the human soul. Nevertheless, it is, maybe we could say, a sacred prison. It's also a training grounds. And he speaks of the beauty of the body, the health of the body, the light of the body, and care for the body. So we have a really interesting interplay between body and mind when we look at this ancient Greek tradition, and this use of training the body to help train the mind and therefore awaken the mind, strengthen the mind, is something that I'd love for us to converse some more on today. That was my 18 minutes.
Beautiful. Well, before we open the circle, Renée, I stumbled upon a question I thought I'd direct back to you. It's just a way of kind of rounding out your discussion. Drawing from this idea how the brain consumes a tremendous amount of caloric energy. And so I'm wondering, how do you see this kind of questioning that Socrates did that he practiced as a form of training that works the mind in a way similar to how physical exercise works the body. And that relationship between how physical training builds a capacity for greater strength and athletic capability, and how that relates to this training of the mind in the Socratic style.
Well, I actually think that's a great question to open to the entire group.
Very good, then. Let's do that. Or, of course, anything else that's on anyone's mind.
No, well, that's a great question, though, really. It's something that I did mention that the Greeks considered, or at least Socrates considered, the mind to be like training the mind to be like training the muscles of the body. And so.
Could you repeat the question?
Sure. Do you think the Socratic questioning serves as a kind of gymnasium for the mind, shaping it through effort and resistance, much like physical training shapes the body?
So this Socratic dialogue that I was referring to, where someone like Socrates asks probing questions, does that work to train the mind in the same way that physically training the body would make the body stronger, more resilient, more let's say, more agile, all those things?
That may be so, but the thing about the mind is it's surrounded by, well, so is the body, but it's surrounded by vibrations and other very active energies that seem to make it more difficult to train the mind. So there's a very complex set of factors, it seems, in training the mind. That's just a first thought.
Yeah, I think you're referring to distractions, and I'm thinking about the opposite of that being focus.
Yeah, I wouldn't call them all distractions, because a lot of vibrations, maybe it's through the sounds of music, or it's just through memories. There's a lot of different energies that influence our kind of whole being, that would, yes, you could say interfere, but also maybe reinforce
Gotcha. Yeah.
the giving the mind something to focus on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I can answer in the sense that I experienced this whole conversation personally. It's the more the body is strengthened, they really support each other in this way. The more the body is strengthened, the more the mind is strengthened. As the mind is strengthened, what we call distractions or lack of focus, there's more strength on all these multiple levels, because it's not body or not body, it's all one thing. There's more strength to stay in the penetrating questions than the penetrating strength in the penetrating question then makes more strength to stay in the physical discipline. Right now, in my life, I've gone through and I'm going through this. It's a perfectly timed piece for this conversation. I had said that I've been in bodybuilding, physical discipline of many kinds for decades. And I had, because of this year's special birthday for me, I was going to participate in a big time Waikiki bodybuilding contest later on in 2026, for real, because I experienced the strengthening of working with physical discipline. And I do, regular weight training and stuff. But this was going to be something that shows, okay, at this stage of life, this can still be done. Well, there's my plan and God's plan. And so some things came up that kept me from being prepared for this contest that's going to happen in November of 2026. So I put it off to November of 2027. So it's going to be outrageous. I'm telling you that as I have this conversation, what I'm feeling, it's more of a time to be looking. The reason that wasn't allowed, it's not appropriate at this stage of life. It's too much wear and tear. It's too much focus away from, it's not a balanced focus, because for a while, for at least a year, I'd have to be uber focused on the body culture situation. And really the philosophy side, which includes everything other. I don't want to neglect that in any way. So it's really a moment of asking the question, of finding the balance. I do want to tell you, just for the very fun of it, next month I'll be 80, and I was going to participate in this huge bodybuilding contest in Waikiki. I saw it last fall. I was like, oh my God, what am I doing? It's like, just do it. Anyway, I told you the other part. It's so important to keep these two things in balance. If we can break them down to that idea of two things, it's so important to cultivate and discipline the physical, because what I think about it is, as I get older, I don't want to be incapacitated. I have this sense that I'm going to live for a really long time, and I want to be fully, optimally healthy and moving in that reality. And so it just sort of evolved naturally in my curious, philosophical and physically based life to do it this way. And I'm just really happy. It's like we've been veering towards each other all this time. And this meeting is thrilling my heart. So thank you.
Cliff, I see your hand raised.
Well, I was just going to follow up on what Rhea has been saying, because I was thinking about balance a lot, and what Renee was talking about, that it seems like for the Greeks, balance was a really, really important thing. They had, one of their virtues was called sophrosine, which really kind of comes down to balance. And there's that Delphic oracle that nothing to an excess. But this idea, I never thought of a dialogue as a wrestling match. But yes, it's interesting that the physical wrestling, but also the wrestling of the minds in the Platonic dialogues.
Yes.
But you have to ask yourself, what is the purpose of all this? What is the purpose? There has to be a purpose. And I think somehow, if we're able to have balance between the vestures, between our higher and lower vestures, then we're also opening ourselves up in a way to allowing this energy of the universe to come through us. Like it's like you're saying that learning is recollection, is a Greek idea, but we have to we have to balance the channels, we have to open the channels, and we have to work with others, either on the wrestling mat or in dialogue or in seeking of wisdom, like we're doing in this Gems of the Wisdom tradition, to be able to be receptive to those higher levels of learning. It seems to be that I'm just playing off of what Rhea was saying there.
Beautiful. You reminded me of, I work out with a personal trainer, and when I'm doing a certain exercise, he'll just tap the muscle that he wants me to focus on. And that's like, I think the Socratic little jab, I think is how Renee expressed it. It's just like, bring focus there. Yeah. If you have something to contribute, just unmute your mic and I will probably know you're ready to speak.
I wanted to say something. It stimulated a lot of ideas. Renee gave a wonderful talk. I love she talked about the gadfly, that little stinging awareness. But interestingly, Socrates also gave a metaphor that he was a midwife, and that he would be a midwife to help another person give birth to an idea, to a good idea, to a true idea, to, as as Cliff said, a balanced idea or a balanced life. So how do you give birth to that kind of feeling? And when Carolyn talked about being surrounded by that energy, I wanted to kind of go back to that as a core idea, because when you asked about the moving of the body, the actual process of the body, the Greeks had a really interesting word um, for the struggle of the body itself in the gymnasium, also in the theater, also in the philosophical arena. All of those, there was a struggle going on. And the word for that was agon. It's where we get our word agony, the agony and the ecstasy, a reference there. But agon was itself the contest, the struggle, the contesting element. And so that was a process, not an end, it seems to me. And that, to me, is a really interesting idea. Paul in the New Testament uses that word agon, the Greek word, in the epistle to Timothy. And he says, fight the good fight. Fight the good fight is agon of faith. In other words, to really awaken faith, fight the good fight of getting to faith. And so I just find that an interesting element. Agon is not just the body, mind, or spirit, it's the contesting we have to make those come forward. And not so much we're surrounded by energy, we are energy. When Renée spoke about somos, one definition of somos is life energy. Is the energy that gets us from the physical to the invisible. But we are that as well, that whole process. And so to me, it's kind of interesting because then you're talking more about the process than the destiny. The road made in the walking, not the road made to get somewhere, but the walking itself. Each step is agon. Not just agony, but and yeah, that's the only way you're going to get into any kind of exercise arena contesting is to put yourself into the struggle, and the struggle is it. that's in a way, as I see it, how the Greeks really looked at the heart of it all was that contesting, that struggling, that working it. And part of that is balance. I mean, you don't just get balance. Balance is a balancing. So you feel one kind of thing, Sophrosony, as Cliff said, that's a kind of balance, but it's also a kind of moving back and forth. I like the word ataraxia because it means coming to equilibrium. You take some drugs, you go way up, well, you're going to come down again. And so you have to realize that habit forming kind of thing works in a way against you. But balancing, you don't come to balance. You actually are always in that process of finding your equilibrium. And it's different for every person, different for every stage of life, different for every arena, political, social, religious, doesn't matter. Anyway, it stimulated so many ideas of that. And I think that's kind of a interesting way to think of it as this kind of process of discovery.
That's awesome, Bob. Thank you. You reminded me of something I heard years ago, and it's just stuck with me, is that kites only rise against the wind. Yeah, it's that struggle against the wind. When the wind dies, no more kite. But I was worried when you said that word, it made me think of this idea of egging someone on. Egg on? I'm going to egg you on. That's some crazy kind of psychosis. I think Cliff had his hand up even before Jade and Tishon. So Cliff?
Well, yeah, my thought is just really brief in regards to what Bob is saying about this struggle. The word competition, actually, when you get to the roots of it, it means not to strive against, it means to strive together. So the seeking of wisdom, the increasing our physical abilities and so forth, there's so much done, so much better when we do it together. And we've kind of lost that wonderful meaning that I think the Greeks had about competition, which was it's a process, like you're saying, Bob, but it's a process that we do in a united together. We're lifting each other up by the struggle. It's not a struggle against, it's a way to elevate mutually.
Well, and that's kind of the Olympic spirit, and they felt that. They bring themselves naked to the arena and contest with each other and with yourself. I mean, wrestling, as Renee elegantly pointed out, wrestling is finding a move that is right or fitting in a particular context. You don't wrestle alone. So you're exactly right.
Speak for yourself. Dishan?
I think wonderfully spoken, everyone. And I want to bring this learnings from Bob, Cliff, and Renee all together. And I would like to do a small competition, all of us together, unite. And I want to invite everybody to practice balance. And I had this moment, let's just come together. Let's stand up if you can.
Okay, I'm in.
And we are going to do tree pose. Standing on one leg, we are going to bring one of our favorite legs just on our other leg as much as we can balance. We're going to raise our arms to the side. And let's just bring our focus and attention on our breath. Our intention is to find balance within. And we are in competition with ourselves and with each other. Our intention is to stand like this for at least a minute. And as we go through the motion, we are going to have this wonderful physical and mental battle. The mind might want to give out, or the body might want to give out. Let's see, what are we learning between this interaction between the mind and the body? And if you give up early, you just have to smile at the end. And let's stay still together, focusing on our breath. You can bring your attention on your shoulders, sensing your feet, which is giving you this wonderful groundedness and balance. Or maybe it's your mind allowing you to be balanced in the moment. What is it that is making you realize that you are balanced? Sounds like we are all ready for Olympics. Maybe 30 minutes more. 30 seconds more, I'm sorry.
That was more than a minute.
I have to say, as a fellow yoga teacher, we're going to have to do the other side.
Let's maybe try that. If that permits your body to find that balance, let's switch. Let's maybe have conversation now. What are we feeling? If anybody wants to raise their hand and maybe speak up, just share their thoughts. And let's see if we can maintain that inner balance and in the body.
Yeah, what's speaking to me is you said choose your favorite side, and now we're on the unfavored side. And the struggle has increased, so thank you.
I think for me, it's very interesting. It brings you into this present moment because we're breathing and there's nothing else going on. We're focusing on standing on one foot, and I think that is the mental and the physical balance, that when we are in balance, we are totally present in the moment. And that's how we can bring those two together.
All right. If you haven't yet done with the exercise, you can. I think thanks for the wisdom from everyone, and I thought this was a gateway, that body has always been a gateway for us to sense about what we are feeling. And there's always this wonderful intermix of energy between mind and body. Mind might want you to take in one direction, but the body can also help you get aligned in one direction depending on what your intention is. And there's just a great inspiration from Cliff, Bob, and Renee all coming together. So thank you. Hello.
Thank you for bringing it into the body. We appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
It did make clear, as Diana pointed out, this idea of being present in the moment. If we were wandering anywhere else, and all of a sudden we needed to find that balance physically in the body, that's quite a bit of presence that we've brought. I wasn't thinking about anything else for quite a while. So just that stillness. I think Kirk had his hand up earlier, and I'm wondering if he's still available. It's a lot later in Santa Barbara. He could be in the middle of dinner for all I know, but
he's back.
Oh, there he is.
I've been listening carefully and watching rather than trying to do the yoga pose. But I was, in response to the initial question, I'd raised my hand because I was thinking about, all the times where I've allowed myself to get physically out of shape for one reason or another, lack of exercise, lack of training, lack of discipline, and then trying to re-engage. And there's always considerable resistance to starting up again, right? The initial efforts, to run, for example, if you haven't run for a very long time, or even a few weeks, you suddenly realize, oh my gosh, I can't go as far as I used to at all. And boy, this is very painful. And, it's very easy to injure yourself and so on, especially as you age. So the analogy there that was coming to mind was similar to any kind of mental effort, whether that is meditation or inquiry, in this case, philosophical inquiry, that you're going to run up against resistance. You have to make the effort again and again at a regular discipline. And of course, we're encouraged in all traditions to make it a kind of cyclic effort. For example, meditation, doing it at the same time each day at the same hour, because then it becomes a natural tendency, a natural pattern of the constitution to knowing that that's coming and being able to deepen because of that regular rhythm kept to an effort like that. And the same, of course, applies with physical training. If you try, I was for years doing running in the morning, and then I tried to do it in the afternoon on an occasion. I just didn't have the same energy, same focus, the same capacity to do what I could do in the morning. And so that idea of developing regular patterns and rhythms, where this is a time in which you pursue a particular discipline and come back to it again and again, that over time it deepens, right? You cultivate those muscles by which you can sustain longer endurance. You can go further. You can accomplish things that you couldn't have a week ago or a year ago, 3 years ago, so that, and this is why, great practitioners of meditation, of course, that they keep at it. There's many stories, right, from many traditions, 20 years of meditation, no results, no enlightenment. And then, a week later, a spark lightens and a door is turned and so on. So that's all.
Thank you.
And I think we can look farther than just the Greek tradition for this idea of training the body being such good preparation for training the mind, and such a great analogy to training the mind. And I understand from the yoga tradition that yoga asana are simply really and primarily made that's the different postures so that one can be better at meditating. They're not ends in and of themselves, all those different yoga postures. It's not, can I become the best living pretzel? It's, it's, can I use this training of my body to prepare me to train my mind? And I am wondering, Kirk, did you find that when you lost your physical fitness, did it have an impact either way on your mental fitness?
Oh, very definitely. And I would say emotional as well.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure we've all had that experience, right? That there's a certain kind of processing that goes on at an emotional level, a kind of letting go when you become very focused on a physical activity of any kind. Maybe it's because of that one-pointedness, because there is one becomes conscious of various places in the body where there's resistance. One gets into a state in, say, an aerobic training where it's like the intuition kicks in as well. This is another factor I've experienced many, many times, is that I'd be working on a talk or some issue that I was trying to articulate in my own mind, some question, and then I'd go out for a run, and suddenly, all of these sparks start lighting up. I have insights that I didn't have while I was sitting in my study, So yeah, and but one of the reasons I tuned in today, after not really being participant for so long, was because of the mention of wrestling, because I'm sure Renee and Cliff may remember that, since my junior high and high school days, I was involved in wrestling. It became my sport. And it was one of the most demanding sports that I ever was involved in, and painful and difficult, and training on so many different levels, mental as well as physical, and just exhausting. A wrestling match typically in high school anyway only lasts for 6 minutes. 3 rounds, 2 minutes each. But even after the first round, you're completely exhausted if you're actively engaging with your opponent, and because it's like a whole series of short sprints, and where you're using your leverage, your musculature, and everything you've got, your intelligence, to the maximum at certain periods, and also anticipating the counter actions of your opponent, And so there's so many, you could say, analogies that I think, in fact, one of the things my high school wrestling coach used to say was that it was the first sport, right? That before we were, batting balls and throwing javelins and etc., we were, human beings were wrestling with one another. And I don't know if that's true or not. I mean, there's no way for us to know, but that you can imagine it as being a kind of a way of settling disputes as well, right? That two communities unable to agree and send their best wrestler out there. Okay, let's let them battle it out. But the other thing about wrestling is there's no biting, there's no punching. You're not supposed to injure your opponent, although it does happen. And but that's it. So it has that element of concern. And of course, there's all kinds of regulations now, especially in the higher levels of collegiate wrestling, where if you even go into a certain move that looks like it could injure the knee or the arm of your opponent, they'll stop the match, and they'll actually you can get points docked against you for going into those treacherous kind of moves. So yeah, the I thought that would be part of the discussion that Renee was going to bring up, is all of these elements that go into making it really in my experience, one of the most challenging things you can possibly engage in. Because obviously, and a whole another element I haven't even brought in is the fact that the best wrestlers also, besides their strength training and all their other trainings, they know hundreds of different moves, specific moves that they've practiced again and again over decades, that is like incorporated into their muscle memory, so that but they're also setting them up in a particular match, right? So that you're jarring your opponent one direction because you know he's going to resist, and as soon as he resists, you go into the other direction. And that could even be multiple. There's like multiple cycles where, he resists, or you push, he resists, you push back, he resists in a different way, and then you go into the third or the fourth sequence, which is where you really wanted to, hoping to capture him, And so there's that whole just years, decades of training in particular wrestling moves that the body because there isn't time to think. There isn't time to think ahead. Once you go into a series of motions like that, your body just has to automatically respond, knowing in responding to what your opponent is doing, right? And so it's so remarkable. That's why to this day, I'm fascinated by seeing really talented wrestlers, because it's kind of magic in a way, but it's built out of years of discipline. And of course, the best wrestlers are those who have, since 2 or 3 years old, they've been training as in wrestling specifically and focused on it, or other martial arts sports. So that all of these maneuvers are just like second nature to them. They're just doing it, so ingrained in the body. Anyway, I'll stop there.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
I see Diana's hand raised, and I want to mention also we're nearing the end of the hour, and we have a couple of things we need to do. Renee needs to talk about next week, and then we need to do a little thank you to Renee for everything she does. So with that in mind, Diana.
Okay. I was just thinking about the Olympians talking about visualization, that, and they've done many studies that the visualization of the moves that you're going to make affects the moves when you make them. And so talking about the mind-body connection, that when we see how powerful visualization is, and you're right, it is on instinct. When you go on the mat, you have to be totally present and just let it kind of come through you. You're just body memory. And I think that whole idea of how we think about something, there was some study, and I may be wrong, but as I remember, there's studies that show that you can practice throwing that ball into that basketball thing, the hoop. Sounds like I don't know what I'm talking about. But if you practice that and watch it, it does affect your ability to do it, because you're already practicing it in your mind, whether it really is happening or if it's in your mind. And it really speaks to the mind-body connection. And I was just thinking about how we visualize our life and how we work with our life in our daily life that allows us to move forward. What is it that we are intending to produce or to be in this world? So that's what
I think this will expand, because we're talking about the quantum reality now. To be continued, yeah?
Yeah.
I did want to say in regard to Kirk's talking about more of the specifics of the sport of wrestling. First of all, I was rather trepidatious about going into it from the point of view of the Greeks. The Academy of Mindful Movement has 4 pillars, and one of the pillars is nonviolence. And from what I've been able to derive from the ancient Greek practices, they were not always as protecting of the human body as I'm glad to hear, Kirk. The human body was being protected during your high school wrestling, and I hope in some of today's more professional wrestling as well. And there were forms of wrestling that the Greeks did that were to the death. So I was a little bit hesitant to go in that direction because I just didn't have the time to find the full explanation of it. I mean, it's good to know that Plato was more someone who walked this middle path in terms of exercise. But that was part of it. But as you were speaking, and of all of these different moves, hundreds of moves that a wrestler would need to make, and this need to rely upon being very much in the moment so that the muscle memory can kick in and respond to what was going on at that very moment in time, with the whole breadth, length of discipline of one's experience. It reminded me of what Ryan Cork was talking about when he was talking about ice hockey, where you're basically moving on such a smooth surface. It's like glass, and it's so fast. In their case, they're only on the ice for 30 to 45 seconds at a time. It's so exhausting and so quick. And so within that very brief period of time, you have to be completely present and completely intuitive in your moves. And there's also this intuition that takes place between the different players. Yeah. It's not like, let's get in a huddle and let's plan out who's going where before this move. That's not how it works. It's much more intuitive. And that perhaps is the kind of training that whenever we've heard someone who is a wonderful speaker and can speak extempore and can answer questions extempore with such a depth and a fluidity, it is always the result of tremendous mental training that they're able to do that they're able to be very pertinent to the question that's being asked. They're able to draw in many other details and weave those in. They're often able to, like Abraham Lincoln, tell a very appropriate story or joke that fits the moment. And all of that comes from this tremendous mental training that they have, allowed themselves to get that kind of ability the way that a tremendously trained athlete would have, to be able to respond to the moment with such perfection.
Beautiful. Thank you, Renee. I'm reflecting back from the yogic standpoint, the word we use in Sanskrit is abhyasa, or repetition. That truly is training. And we find that practice makes perfect, right? And so it brings to mind a question that I'll maybe just leave people with to ponder for next week is, what is it that we're practicing now on a day-to-day basis in our lives that is shaping our future? Would you like to talk about next week, or would you like me to mention the topic?
Yeah, I'll be happy to mention that next week is one of the weeks in this year's almanac where we're looking at different elements in nature and seeing their symbolic value to how we live our lives. Next week will be the earth, and each of these for this year has been translated into Hawaiian. So it's the earth kahonua. And we don't at this point in time have a presenter, and I'm like to suggest that perhaps Jaden Deschen might like to consider making a presentation along those, and you can let me know later. But just putting out a little feeler.
Call you out.
No pressure, no pressure.
Yeah, no
pressure, no pressure.
I learned that word voluntold by Mary. Thank you very much, Mary, for that. Yeah.
It's just an inquiry.
Is there someone amongst us that would like to offer a vote of a voice of gratitude for our presenter today? Carolyn, please. You'll have to unmute first.
You have to unmute yourself, doll.
Yeah.
It was a very clear summary of a very complex topic, Greek philosophy. So we appreciate greatly the time and the work that Renée put into it. And it always shows that leadership has many facets. So we really were inspired, and we really were educated by her talk. So we hope she'll come back and do some more.
There's a pretty good chance of it.
No fights to the death, though, please.
If anyone would like to stay on a few minutes longer, we'll keep the conversation open. Otherwise, from me to all of you, thank you so much for joining us today.
And David, thank you so much for serving as our moderator, so I could be a presenter and not have to have dual roles. That was very helpful. Thank you so much. Well done.
Thank you, David.
Thank you, Renée and David.
Everyone.
And iPhone 56, we're so curious who you are.
Yeah, Kirk, I was thinking, oh, and he disappeared. I was thinking what he was saying before our ancestors learned to use tools. I'm sure wrestling was their way of battling, right?
Well, he said the first sport, and when you are around little kids, as soon as they can, kind of get close enough to each other, that's what they're doing, is they're rolling around wrestling with one another.
Yeah.
Sometimes before they can even walk. It probably is the first sport.
I think
until that first monolith landed and taught the monkey how to pick up a stick. Recall from 2001, right?
Yeah.
The beginning of tool using. Before that, they were just tearing each other's limbs off. They probably allowed biting back in the day.
I like as far as wrestling is concerned, when wrestling was put forth, I was thinking of wrestling more philosophically for this conversation.
Right.
So when people brought up people wrestle to the death, I was like, whoa. But I think wrestling is so perfect because it does have that spectrum. We can choose where we're going to wrestle. I love the picture of the young athletes learning all these moves and using them, and it's like a dance. It's this intense physical dance of wrestling. This conversation, I thank you so much, Renée, because this conversation has brought up so many avenues of thought for me, and brought together so many. There's always absorbing information and articles and books, and today I was thinking, how does this all come together? And this talk, which I just discovered in the middle of the day, has really brought my focus to how these things come together, why I'm interested in all these things and how they fit together in this, the sort of dichotomy that you created of the physical and the philosophical. How do they come together? Where's the balance? It's beautiful. I so appreciate this conversation. Thank you, David. Thank you, Bob, and thank you so much, Renée. Thank you.
Thank you, Rhea.
When I visited the Dalai Lama's residence in exile up in Dharamsala, when I got down close to where the monks, it was this clamoring sound. I was, what is going on? The monks all argue amongst each other. That's how they arrive. And it's loud. It's this huge clamor of argument on philosophy. Yeah.
That's how they deliver those questions, right?
It is.
It's so beautiful.
The Dharma.
Oh, whoa.
But it's interesting because that Dharma combat is one way, but also when they're not doing that, then they're kite fighting.
Oh,
We're talking
Kite
about that in
fighting?
terms of the kite in the air, but you can actually do kite fighting.
oh, wow.
But
They put glass shards on the threads or on the strings.
yeah,
Oh, wow.
I
Okay.
don't know this. If I ever knew it, I forgot. This is beautiful.
but one of the things I really appreciate about the wrestling metaphor is, in a Buddhist sense, there's almost two elements going on. One is right effort, perseverance, putting yourself forward physically with that energy. And then the other, which came out, is that sophrosity, the balance, the temperance. And so, if you really are, and that was talked about in terms of wrestling, that the balance itself is kind of the ideal. If you know the move and you know where your opponent's energy is going, you can balance it. It's like Aikido is notorious for that sense of finding the other side of the energy. And a well-sustained mind is a balanced mind. And that's one that doesn't allow the two extremes to kind of carry you away. So it's interesting, wrestling has that kind of sense. Ideally, it shouldn't be that dangerous, active, or aggressive. It really should be much more responsive. And so, I mean, mentally, that's how I think what Rhea was saying. That's wrestling as a metaphor.
Yes,
But
yeah.
it can be physical as well, because the physical balance is another, like the yogic, it's right there. We saw that when we tried to stand on one foot. I mean, unless you're used to it,
Some
you're
of
not.
us tried, some of us did.
Yeah, I guess contact improv would be the
Ooh.
dance variation of that, right? As you're working with each other's energy quite spontaneously.
Right.
And if you haven't practiced contact improv, it looks a little clumsy, but when you see two people who have done it, it's completely spontaneous, but it's also there's a harmony to it.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And I would think that good wrestling was like that too. If one really starts out with the intention of no harm in the wrestling match, then one is almost as attuned to that other body as one is to one's own. So that one knows when, you may be pressing into a joint that, might be vulnerable, for example, when to back off, just how far you can go to get your own way, but without causing any harm. So it's very much, from a Tai Chi standpoint, there's this listening energy called Tingjing.
Tingjing?
Tingjing. And so as you're like doing this push hands with somebody else, you're listening into everything about that person. And I would think, to do this kind of wrestling with no harm, you would have to have really cultivated that kind of energy of being able to listen into.
Yes.
Not a matter of pushing, it's listening into, which, for example, any good body worker, David knows this, as you are entering the field of another person's body to do healing work onto them, you can't just be going in with this idea, well, I'm going to manipulate this, I'm going to push that, I'm going to massage that. It's much more a way of finding your way in, right? And what's needed. And then working with that. And I would think good wrestling might be the same way.
Listening your way in.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
It's very intuitive and meditative at the same time. All of this.
And quick. It's also fast.
Yeah. Just like this conversation.
You're on that wave. You're on that wave. It's quantum, but that's another conversation. Good people. I will.
Thank you all so much.
So wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
David. Thank you, David. Thank you, Rhea and Bob and iPhone 56. Thank you. Aloha.
Pleasure. Aloha.